So this week we are going to talk about something a little bit controversial, and also be a little less serious because I watched the last two videos back. Everything is a little bit too serious, so a bit more relaxed. Hopefully you get some education, but in a fun, exciting and engaging way. So we're going to talk about Agile and why Agile can be at the root of a company's success or failure in a lot of cases. So what is Agile if you haven't heard of it? Agile is essentially like an approach or a philosophy to developing products. It was founded in the early 2000s with the publication of something called the Agile Manifesto, which for all intents and purposes said businesses wasted so much fucking money and time planning stuff, like spending a year, 2 years building a team, working on this big secret product, only to launch it and for it to fail, right? To launch something completely irrelevant. So Agile came in as a way of essentially saying, we need to focus decisions on like the user, so like delivering value for the user, because at the end of the day, the user is the one using it and paying for it. Secondly, that we need to be able to adapt to change, right? So as the context changes, like new technology comes in, new competitors emerge, maybe we discover that the user doesn't want this feature, instead they want this feature, right? So the theory of Agile makes sense. So to be really clear, this is not a critique on Agile as a philosophy. It is a critique on Agile, how it is practiced by unfortunately most teams practice it in a way that it does not reflect the theory. Okay, so how specifically is Agile being mistreated, not the right word, misused, let's say. Firstly, a lot of teams will make decisions based on the user, right? Correctly. So Agile says, let's make decisions based on the user because they're using it, they're going to pay for it. Great, tick that box. The problem is that too many teams will listen to user feedback or empathize with the user in a way where they don't effectively prioritize it. So they tick that first box, like, cool, we're listening to the user, we're modern and agile, blah, blah, blah. But essentially what a lot of companies do will focus on sort of, okay, great. So, our user, let's call it John, like John needs to be able to reset his password on our app. Great, yeah, John does want that, but is that the kind of decision that's going to get you from, 0 to retaining a customer and getting them to pay for your product? Probably not. And the problem is that again, by sort of being user-centric, i.e. making decisions based on the user and what they want, we sometimes need to say also, okay, well, what does the user want and what will get us to profitability? Like what will get us up here? And not just making these tiny incremental changes, which again are essential when you're starting a new venture, right? You can't just creep up like this. You need to make these big leaps to essentially get to profitability as fast as possible. So I'm just checking it's recording, yeah. Second thing is adapting to change. So again, the world is uncertain. Anything can happen, right? New competitor, new technology comes along, but primarily when we talk about adapting to change, what we're talking about here is that we come in with initial assumption about what a user would want, right? So, we're going to build, a writing app, let's say, and a user needs to be able to add a title, right? So that could be a feature. Maybe we find that actually they don't care. They simply want to just, get some words down like in a notes app. So we need to be able to adapt our plan to that. So again, Agile came in to say, let's not plan everything before we build it because we simply don't know what the user wants. We never can know. And therefore we need to adapt as we go. Again, theoretically makes complete sense. The problem is that in practice, too many teams conflate agility with chaos. So, a lot of teams are like, one thing they do know is that they're not at profitability yet, or the product's, not where it needs to be in terms of growth, but they are um, there's a lot of energy being expended, like they are, doing lots of stuff and running around and changing their plan every day, every few hours even. The problem is that a lot of people are like effervescing. Imagine when you open like a Coke bottle, that sort of just energy going everywhere. There's chaos and like stress and like let's get loads of shit done. Yet they're not thinking strategically. So adapting to change was essentially there to say, we have this assumption, but if it doesn't work, we need to change, go this way, right? So we have our vision up here, and we're currently trying to get there, right? Through the different strategies we're trying, what type of feature we're building. And unfortunately, if we do not have a very clear idea of what our strategy is and what assumptions we are trying to answer, then we don't really know what the result of anything we're doing is, right? So imagine our strategy is to build a profitable writing app, like with my company Scribe. Our strategy at the moment is build a desktop app that is good enough for people to pay for. Below that, though, the way we adapt, right, we still have that as our sort of big goal. We adapt, though, again by saying, okay, well, which features will help us get there? So recently we tried, like an audio guide. Is that working? Is it not working? Let's try it for a few weeks. If it doesn't work, then we need to strategically change all of our energy to something else, right? So adapt. And then hopefully we eventually find something that gets us to our goal, whatever X amount of paying customers. So again, two flaws of Agile in practice are that when we think about user-centric decisions, we're not thinking high level enough. We're thinking very small. Again, let them change their password rather than what's that big feature we can that will help us get to profitability as quickly as possible. Secondly, that we rather than adapting strategically, a lot of people just rush around like panicked and crazy, which doesn't help anyone. It just helps you feel busier and like you're progressing, but you're not progressing at all. So there's a fundamental flaw in the way Agile is practiced, which is that everyone understands that the theory makes sense. The problem is that they are not executing it effectively. And when they are not executing effectively, they're never going to look into the process to identify that is the problem, right? So maybe they're not seeing progress with their product. Again, they're releasing loads of features, but they're still not getting to profitability, or people just aren't fucking using it. Then it's easy for them to be like, well, maybe it's some of the team members, maybe it's the wrong features, and eventually we'll find the right one. The problem is that if they are, again, just working on loads of little features, like, again, these small things, and they're not really strategically going, okay, we have these 3 big features, which each one could get us to profitability. Let's try it strategically. Again, if they are not identifying that the way they are practicing Agile is flawed, then the root of the problem is never going to be discovered. And that is why Agile can lie at the root of, it can be the root cause of failure, right? And secondly, with Agile, there is a tendency to optimize for efficiency in practice. And this is actually linked to the first point, really. But this is the fundamental flaw of how most teams practice Agile, is that, so to essentially enact Agile, what we should have is high-level strategic decisions made by, depending on the size of the company, like founders, head of product, high-level product managers. They should be the ones thinking about, okay, what are the types of things we can build to get a user to use the product, to retain them, and eventually pay for that product. What we should then do, theoretically, is obviously we need to actually build the thing, right? So we then implement Scrum, which is essentially a fancy to-do list, let's say. It's a better way to manage a to-do list, right? So we get together and we get our product manager, Scrum Master, designer, developer, whoever else is involved in actually executing, and we say, okay, look, this is the sort of strategic goal we've set, and then we as a team need to make that happen. The problem is, and I'm not going to get into details of Scrum, like look it up if you want, but most of you probably would have heard of it if you're watching. The flaw of Scrum is that we quantify time and effort, right? So each task is given what we call story points. So let's say, okay, building the password reset feature is going to be 8 story points, right? 8 hours of work or effort, depending on the team. Problem there is that we then start quantifying and judging performance based on hours, right? So if a developer, we say, hey, you need to get 20 story points done this week, then there's no incentive for them to think about the impact of their work. Instead, there's a very strong incentive to think about like, well, shit, I need to, be efficient and get lots of stuff done. But again, if the thing you're getting done doesn't matter, then your work doesn't matter, and it's better for you to just fuck off, sit on a beach somewhere, because you're going to be saving energy, right? So what we have in practice is this problem where everyone's eyes are on story points, i.e. let's be more efficient, i.e. let's get more done. And they think that's the problem, rather than taking a step back and actually saying, well, like, time doesn't matter. The user doesn't give a shit how much effort and blood and sweat and tears went into this thing. They only care about how good the feature is, or how good the product is as a whole as it's launched. So we have this problem where theoretically, and everyone would agree with this theoretical point, that we should build things that have impact. But again, we are optimizing for efficiency. So all eyes are on like, let's get more stuff done, which means that we are not focusing on impact. And we can't focus on the two things because we always optimize whatever metric we set ourselves. So if we set a metric of time, i.e. story point, i.e. how much stuff, lines of code, designs are we getting done, then if we set that metric, we're always going to optimize for that metric. So again, Agile in practice, we actually need to change the approach we have here. And what I'll do in a future video is talk you through the lean development process that I apply with my team Scribe and now offer as a consultancy product, to essentially switch that mindset from not getting more stuff done, because that doesn't matter. Better if you work 2 hours a day and actually have impact with your work. But to have impact, you need a different approach and a different structure to help you move from lots of ideas to the best idea, to actually executing quickly on that idea and having impact. And that is the problem with Agile as it is practiced. Again, not the theory.